Good evening. Tonight, we follow Detective Hannibal Jones as he attempts to solve what he believes to be a simple case that quickly devolved into murder most foul. Hello, my lovelies. I am Mademoiselle Butterfly, and tonight, my lovelies, as I said in the intro, we have an exciting tale of mystery and murder. The Wrong Kind by Austin Camacho is definitely one thrilling tale. But before we get into the story, let's talk about the creative mind who built such an exciting web of intrigue. Austin self-published his first novel called Troubleshooter 23 years ago. Since then, he's been picked up by 2 publishers, and as of the making of this video, he has a total of 12 books in print, with 2 more books completed. However, his agent hasn't placed them yet. As a lifelong fan of mystery and thriller stories, Austin would sometimes get frustrated with some of the stories he read. He figured if he was frustrated with a bunch of stories in these genres, why not take a crack at entering the writing game and create his own stories? Once he did, he discovered telling stories, creating characters, and sending them on adventures is a lot of fun, and he soon fell in love with the story creation process. When I asked if he feels nervous once the process is complete and it's time to publish, he answered my question with the question of, why would anyone be afraid to be published? I do feel sympathy for authors who do feel very nervous when it's time for their book to be published. There's a lot of reason to just get uncomfortable with the process and have to adapt to getting comfortable with it. But at the same time, I do see Austin's point of view on the subject of publishing a book. People talk about all the fear when it comes to getting a book published. But at the end of it all, if you wrote a book and worked hard on it, then you don't need to be fearful because you did the best job you could. And it doesn't matter what people say about it. Taking a little peek in what inspired this story's creation, Austin said that his inspiration for The Wrong Kind came from 2 sources. One source of inspiration came from an article that he read involving Russian mobsters and 2 major gangs who were fighting for dominance in Washington, D.C. The final piece of inspiration that really brought the story together came to him when he was at a conference where they spoke about a murder method that he had never seen or heard of before. When these 2 elements came together, Austin was able to craft his amazing crime thriller. Something interesting Austin told me is that he sees books as the best way to travel without having to go anywhere. A book allows a person to venture into somebody else's mind and see life from a different perspective. He also loves when a good mystery writer can make their reader's brain start working on solving a puzzle before the author gives it away. This type of experience is what he also wants to give his readers every time they pick up one of his stories. My lovelies, it's time to put your detective caps on as we take a deeper look into The Wrong Kind. A distraught woman hires private investigator Hannibal Jones to track down her daughter who has run away trying to escape the homeless shelter life her mother has come to accept. No sooner has Hannibal found Connie Blanco than he finds himself intertwined in a gang war and a murder. The corpse is barely cold before a second murder follows, and Hannibal finds himself intertangled in a complex plot. But who is the mastermind of this twisted scheme? This sounds like one pretty darn tricky mystery. But never fear, Detective Hannibal Jones is on the case. I like Detective Hannibal, which is not something I say about most detectives that I read about in crime thrillers. Most of the time when I read a crime thriller, especially ones where the detective is male, he is either a self-righteous prick, a drunk who is so plastered all the time, it's amazing he can solve a crime, let alone stand up, or his life is unstable because his wife and or girlfriend left him because one of them cheated, and he spends a fair amount of the story crying about it, instead of, being way more worried about the case he needs to solve. When the story begins, Hannibal is at a women's shelter that he volunteers to protect at night once a week in order to help these women since they don't have a lot and violent individuals may show up there. After handling some thugs who were actually trying to bust into the shelter, one of the women, whose name is Sofia, asked Hannibal to find her daughter Concepcion. Hannibal takes the job for free because Sofia doesn't have a lot. Also, she's not asking him to do a complicated job, so the case should be not really difficult to solve and get over with. Until everything spirals out of control, the closer Hannibal gets to Concepcion, the more new players enter the equation, and Concepcion is not the only person he ends up having to find. One of the people Hannibal has to find ends up dead. I'm not going to get into details about who this character is because I don't want to ruin the mystery of the story. But the victim was burned to death. At least that is what everyone thinks. Hannibal is suspicious about how this person died, but this character did not have a lot of money or come from a wealthy family, so without a little persuasion, the forensic scientist was not going to make an effort to examine the body further. Now, I like this scene for two reasons. The forensic scientist is an intelligent individual who really prides themselves on their intelligence, but they are unwilling to do a more thorough scan of the victim. Partially because the state isn't exactly paying them overtime to do so or giving them a whole lot of incentive. And as I said before, the victim did not come from a well-to-do family, and as far as they knew, this person was poor, so who cares? Hannibal is able to use this person's pride in their own intelligence to convince them to take a more thorough look. Second, as I mentioned a moment ago, social class played a role in why there was not a more thorough examination to begin with. I like the fact that this was added into the story because it does highlight how often, due to status of a person's wealth, people who don't have a lot of money and died via murder, their deaths do not get the same attention as people of an upper social class, even though they deserve it. And that is just something that is very unfair that the system perpetrates. Before we get to the rating, my lovelies, I would like to take a moment to discuss a part of the story that highlights how addiction can grab someone who is very strong and quickly destroy their life. In the story, there is a female character who is letting her life be destroyed by drugs. Her addiction causes her to allow people to abuse her. She could actually beat the shit out of her abusers easily, but as I said, her need for the drug encourages her to be weak and let those individuals do whatever they want to her. Hannibal attacks her abuser, and he also has a conversation with her about her addiction. I like that he talks to her like a person and does not treat her like scum because she has addiction. In many detective stories that I've read, a lot of times you don't always get a sympathetic detective when they can tell a person has a problem and they need help. They usually treat the person with an addiction like they're worthless and they're really not worth their time. Just give me the information I need. He also refers her to a place that can help her get treatment if she desires to. Whether or not she follows through with getting clean is really left up in the air. Hannibal is not completely sure if she will beat the drugs because whether or not she gets clean is up to her. There is still also a lot we do not know in actuality about how to beat drug addiction other than encouraging a person's willpower to stay clean and away from drugs. So there is no insurance that this person can get clean or stay clean easily. I like the fact that the author took the time to emphasize that just because she's going to a place to get clean, one, we have no insurance that she will actually go, and two, if she goes, we have no insurance she'll get clean. All we can do is hope that she does. It highlights how bad the problem of addiction is and how we should approach individuals with addiction more like they're human beings and understand that they have an illness. The Wrong Kind by Austin Camacho is getting the rating of 5 butterflies out of 5. My lovelies, this was just such a fun mystery story to read. And I can tell you right now, you're just being mean to yourself if you don't treat yourself to this book. Now, if you've made it to this part of the video, thank you oh so much. And please give this video a like. Leave me a little comment if you please. And if you have not yet, slap that subscribe button like it owes you money. And don't forget to give that little notification bell a ring. And with that, my lovelies, this video is a wrap. Now if you please, come with me as we dance into a world of magic.